if you wanted Soto, you should have locked up Vlad Jr. by now.
All right, let's do this. The Inside Scoop with FT Senior Insider Ken Rosenthal. Just a ton of great notes put out in The Athletic. So I advise you, of course, to subscribe and check out all of those notes. We're going to ask some follow-ups. So, Ken, I want to start with Ryan Helsley. Do you think this is just a bargaining tool? Can you explain, obviously, why you think the Cardinals might hold on to him at least for half a season?
Well, first, I was hearing from Team Scott that the Cardinals weren't eager to trade him, that they were talking more, maybe doing it at the deadline. So then I asked John Mozeliak, the president of baseball operations, and he said, our plan is to keep him. We're always going to keep our options open, but that is our plan. And what the Cardinals are doing is a reset, but it's not a teardown. And they evidently or clearly want to be competitive to some degree in 2025. Now, it's not going to be a situation where they're going out and signing free agents, but Helsley is a guy that clearly would also have value, great value at the deadline, but lesser value perhaps than he would have right now, because if you trade him right now, the team that gets him gains the right to give him a qualifying offer at the end of the season. A player traded in the middle of the season, you cannot give a qualifying offer to. So the return now probably would be greater, but you could also make the argument that relievers are always in demand at the deadline and that the Cardinals, if they trade him then, would do probably just as well.
Is it more of something when you talk to Mozeliak that it could be like a domino effect? If Arenado stays, yeah, you know what? We're not going to trade Helsley. We have a premier defensive third baseman. We'll keep our closer. We'll patch it together for a little bit. Or is it something that you feel like he is firm in his stance that unless it blows us away, we're not going to trade him?
Eric, they want to trade Arenado. Arenado probably hasn't really said this publicly, but he probably wants to go. He wants to play for a contending type team. This team is not pointing toward contention in 25. They're pointing toward creating some opportunities for younger players, doing some things along those lines. So I expect Arenado to go, maybe Steven Matz as well, but maybe not much more beyond that. And we've already heard, too, from the Cardinals or from some of their players, Wilson Contreras does not want to be traded. He's going to play first base for the next year. Sonny Gray did not want to be traded. So they're kind of, I wouldn't say handcuffed, but there's only so much they can do and only so much that they want to do. So that is what is driving the seeming desire to keep Helsley.
I also want to throw this in there. Helsley would love to stay, and then if they aren't good, get flipped at the deadline, because then you get rid of the qualifying offer. It just takes the penalty away. Yeah. So the other end of this is what you have been covering with Devin Williams, is the reason why the Brewers are so aggressive to trade someone like him now, at least partially tied to the fact that the Brewers are usually good. And that's a tough sell at the deadline if you have to trade away your closer if he's thriving.
Well, they did it once before, right? Didn't go so well. Josh Hader. And the Brewers, they're in a situation where they've got a really good bullpen. And they know Devin Williams is going to have extreme value in the trade market. Two-time Trevor Hoffman Award winner as the best reliever in the National League. He's the best guy out there. You can talk about Tanner Scott and all the others, but Devin Williams is the most proven closer. And he likely would command a significant price. Now, the Brewers are a team like the Rays, like the Guardians, that are constantly turning over players when they get to a point with their salary where they feel we can maybe do something to get a little bit cheaper. That, I would imagine, is their goal here. They could use more help in their rotation. They've got guys, and they've got younger guys, and Woodruff is coming back, but Freddie Peralta really is their only proven top of the rotation guy. So if you can make the same kind of trade you made for Corbin Burns last year. Now, he's not Corbin Burns, Devin Williams, but he's got a lot of value. Then certainly you have to explore that, and you probably do it, right? They got for Corbin Burns, Joey Ortiz, who was a really good infielder and showed that last season, and DL Hall, a guy who is still figuring it out as a pitcher, but has a chance to be a contributor to this team this year and beyond.
Looking at the haul that they would get for Devin Williams, has there been somebody in the recent 10 years even that's had the resume of Devin Williams and was up on the trade block with the, years of control? Because I can't think of anybody, but I'm also thinking of like guys who have won the Rolaids relief. It was the Rolaids Relief Award before it became the Mariano and Trevor Hoffman Award.
Well, Devin Williams, if I'm not mistaken, is a free agent after this year. So years of control, that's not necessarily something that is such an appealing thing for the Brewers or even for an acquiring team. But we saw the Hader trade, and that was perhaps the best example of a guy like this getting traded. That's what I would compare it to. That was a little bit different, of course, at the deadline as opposed to now. And as I just said with regard to Helsley, you get Devin Williams now, you have the ability to extend him. Or if you cannot get that done, you make him a qualifying offer and at least you gain the right to draft pick compensation. So for all those reasons, we've seen the Brewers do this kind of thing before. I would not be surprised to see them do it again. And frankly, if I'm them and I know in the market that Helsley is not really out there, it further emboldens me to make the best deal I can because I don't have that competition from Helsley, who last year was the Trevor Hoffman winner.
This holiday season, I want to give a gift to my loved ones that makes them feel special and unique. That gift is Storyworth.
Here's how it works. Each week, Storyworth emails your loved one a thought-provoking question that you get to help pick. Things like, what's the bravest thing you've ever done? And what's the farthest you've ever traveled? All your loved one needs to do is respond with a story. Long or short, it doesn't matter. After that year of fun, Storyworth compiles those stories and photos into a beautiful keepsake hardcover book that you'll be able to share and revisit for generations to come. This is the perfect book to pass along at family gatherings or read with your kids. It is beautifully orchestrated by Storyworth, and that's why it has more than 35,000 five-star reviews on Trustpilot, with millions of stories preserved since they were founded over 10 years ago.
With Storyworth, I'm giving those I love most a thoughtful personal gift from the heart and preserving their memories and stories for years to come. Go to storyworth.com/foul and save $10 on your first purchase. That's storyworth.com/foul to save $10 on your first purchase.
Let me ask you this. Matt Chapman, you wrote a little bit ago, has come out and said he will play shortstop if they do decide to go for Ha-Seong Kim. I mean, that is absolutely incredible. A third baseman going to shortstop. Can you give us a little background about this? And, you know, has he played shortstop before? I mean, was he a shortstop before a third baseman? Give us a little inkling about, you know, decision for him to even say that. Can he do it?
Very limited at shortstop. I believe it's 16 games total, college and pro. So it's not like he's played that position a lot. But of course, he is a brilliant defender at third. And I don't have much doubt that on a short-term basis, he could handle that position. I don't think anyone would doubt that. What happened here is that the Giants and Chapman, I guess, were talking about this possibility of Ha-Seong Kim, a guy who's coming off shoulder surgery. And what if the Giants signed him? At that point, would Chapman be willing to move over temporarily? And Chapman, from what I understand and what I wrote, agreed to that. And it speaks to him and his willingness to kind of do anything that the team desires, within reason, of course. And it speaks perhaps as well to the connection that Buster Posey, the new president of baseball operations, has with players. Buster's a former player. He's a guy people respect. You guys know this. There is a different kind of conversation that takes place between former player and player than between standard front office executive and player. Just as there's a different conversation that takes place when you guys, Todd, Eric, AJ, Cameron, whoever, speaks to a player on our show versus me interviewing them for an article. It's a different relationship. And the Giants, it seems to me, will be able to leverage that. Now, Matt Chapman might have done this for any GM. I don't know. But there's something to Posey, too. I'm hearing a lot of good things about the feel he has for this job, even though he just started it. And I'm hearing that from agents. I'm hearing it from other teams. So good start so far for Buster Posey. I know he really hasn't done anything yet, but the things I'm hearing are positive.
Well, it sounds like it's positive for Danny Jansen, or is a one-year deal not positive? Can you give us a little more insight? Thought maybe he would be a little bit more than a one-year deal, but maybe a chance to start in Tampa.
He's in agreement with the Rays, and Robert Murray reporting that it's an $8.5 million deal for 1 year. So that, to me, is a good number, Eric, for a guy like Danny Jansen. And the Rays, like the A's yesterday, probably have to pay a little bit more because he'll be playing his home games at Steinbrenner Field, a minor league Florida State League park. I don't know that that's too enticing for most free agents, but Danny Jansen's going to brave the rainouts and the rain delays and the doubleheaders and all the wonderful things that the Rays are going to have to deal with this year. The Rays have been looking for a catcher really my goodness, ever since they failed to draft Posey and took Tim Beckham. I don't remember the year. And this is a guy who will be looking, as you said, Eric, to reestablish his value. He can hit. He is a great guy on a team. The Blue Jays absolutely loved him. So for the Rays, to me, this is a positive move.
And a guy who knows the division well, of course, too. That certainly doesn't hurt. Okay, so we'll stay in the division. I always love the way that you've been writing about the Blue Jays over the past year and change, and you used the word baffling in your latest notes column about what the Blue Jays are up to. We can tie it into the Juan Soto sweepstakes, but the chances that they offer the most and that they have a lot of promise to show can't be high at this point. I mean, it is really tough to understand the plan, and I'm glad that you're documenting that in your notes again.
It is difficult to understand this, and we've talked about it at some length on this show. One, if you wanted Soto, you should have locked up Vlad Jr. by now. Now, maybe the plan is to get Soto and then lock up Vlad Jr., but it becomes that much more difficult after Soto's number, 600, 650, 700, whatever it is on the board. No one's confusing Vlad Jr. with Soto. I get it, but Soto is going to raise the bar for everyone, and Vlad is a free agent after next season. So that's one thing. The other thing is the Jays have a lot of holes. Now, they have a collection of young position players, including a couple of guys that they acquired at the deadline, Jonathan Clase, Joey Loperfido, Will Wagner, that they feel can maybe bridge them to the next competitive Blue Jays team, or actually a competitive Blue Jays team this year. So they feel that even if Guerrero and Bichette leave, and they don't get Soto, that because they have these guys, they're going to be in a decent position, have a reasonable floor. I don't know that we can really say that with confidence, but that seems to be the plan. And again, if you're Juan Soto, and we don't know what Juan Soto's preferences are, that's one of the reasons this is such a mystery. Why would you choose Toronto, even for more money, when you can get great money from the Yankees, the Mets, the Reds, whoever? Why would you choose a team with a weak farm system, a team where Guerrero and Bichette are not guaranteed to be with after this season, a team that just kind of isn't really as strong in its foundation as some of the other clubs that are bidding for you? If he wants the most money and the Jays offer the most money, God bless him. I just have a hard time seeing it happening.
Luis Severino just signed a deal with the Oakland A's, 3 years, I think $67 million, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir.
Talk a little bit about that signing right there. I mean, the A's are another team that's going to be playing in a minor league park. What do you think was the decision there for him to go there? I mean, he was a really good pitcher this last year. Probably could have gone to a numerous amount of teams, contending teams. Talk a little about that decision, and good for him. I mean, I would say for sure.
I would imagine this was a financially driven decision, that because he had the qualifying offer attached, maybe the other offers weren't quite as enticing as the A's were. And I don't know what the difference was. I don't know if he didn't have an offer within 10 million, within 5 million, whatever the case might be. But that deal for a pitcher with a qualifying offer was considered by the industry to be pretty good, really good for the player, kind of steep, actually. So it's a money thing. Of course, it generally is in free agency. You cannot fault any player for that. Obviously, he is sentenced to Sacramento purgatory for the next 3 years, but that's the choice he made. And the A's, we don't talk about them much on the field because we talk so much about what they're doing off the field, but they're kind of an intriguing team. They've got some good things happening, and it goes even beyond Rooker and some of the other guys who have emerged for them. They're a team that is actually not that far away from contending for a wild card. They've got to do some things. They're probably going to have to make some trades because I can't imagine too many free agents are going to want to go there. But at the same time, that was a marker that they put down yesterday with Severino, and good for them.
Early in the offseason, or maybe even it was during the year last year, they talked about the $100 million payroll that they could possibly have. Whether we believe it or 150. Okay. So whether we believe that or not, they have a long way to go. If they reach that number, or even close to that number, we talked about it yesterday on our show. Is it possible that they're more setting up for, hey, what city actually wants us because this Las Vegas thing might not work out? Now you're putting together a roster of a legitimate team if you're spending that much money, where if they were going to go where, hey, you know what, Vegas wants us, it doesn't matter, we're just going to stay status quo, why raise payroll? We already have a team. So to me, if they actually do this and they put the money up and they raise payroll, doesn't that make it look like they're trying to be more appealing to go to a new city that they have to sell themselves to?
Well, they are trying to do this, and the idea of raising payroll, I should say, is because they are moving into a new ballpark in Las Vegas. It's not that they're trying to sell themselves to another city. They have their city chosen. Now, we've all questioned whether this actually is going to happen until there's a shovel in the ground. The commissioner, Rob Manfred, said, I believe it was just last week, that all systems are go, that this is going to happen, even if there are overruns that the A's are responsible for. Now, they are trying to sell limited stakes in their ownership to raise more money, but again, there are no signs to indicate that this is not going to happen. And Eric, while what you suggest is kind of intriguing, if they were going to do that, if they were trying to sell themselves to the highest bidder as a team going to a new city, why didn't they get more competitive years ago? Why didn't they just do this before? So I don't think it's happening along those lines, but the idea has been, and I wrote about this several months ago, to ramp up payroll as they get closer to Vegas, and then to go into Vegas with, I don't know, 175, 200, something like that. I don't remember my exact numbers, what I reported, but they definitely want to be higher. And Severino is one guy that helps them get closer to what we were talking about.
Very timely. Season tickets on sale next week. Hey, that's good PR right there. While we're on the topic of alligator arm owners, let's finish with this topic. And there are many others in the notes column, Ken, that people can hit up right after this show. But I want to ask you about Cleveland. That's a team that I'm going to start to pick on. They made the playoffs. Their front office has done a brilliant job at quickly putting them in another really good place. They presumably made some money in the playoffs. I don't know for sure. But why do they have to tickle the $100 million payroll mark? It's weird. And they were going hard back when they made the World Series against the Cubs. And now, you can go over what you were writing about, but it's getting a little frustrating for me to follow this team at this point.
It's very frustrating. And to me, a team that makes the playoffs does make money. We know that. The Texas Rangers last year won the World Series, actually 2 years ago now, won the World Series, and because of their TV uncertainty, did not sign a single player outside of Tyler Mahle, who was coming off a TJ, to a multi-year deal. And when you make the playoffs, the money should be reinvested back into the team. Now, I know there's a lot of uncertainty with the future of the regional television networks and all of that. That applies to Cleveland as well. But at the same time, should they be trading Josh Naylor? No, they should be keeping Josh Naylor in tandem with Kyle Manzardo. Should they be trading Lane Thomas? Not when they have a shortage of outfielders. They should be adding to what they have there. So I'm with you, Scott. Obviously, I'm not inside their ownership's finances. I'm not inside their heads. But their front office does a tremendous job year in, year out at putting a pretty competitive product out there. Last year, they got to the ALCS. My goodness. It doesn't get much better than that. And granted, they were outmanned by the Yankees, but they got there. So, sure, they should be adding and not subtracting. Maybe they do something where they trade Naylor for a starting pitcher, and that's filling a need in another way, a need that they definitely have. Okay, but again, in a perfect world, what are you doing? You're keeping Naylor and signing a starting pitcher.
Yes.
Not what happened.
It's so they could easily afford 140, 150. Easily. Let them come out and go against me. We'll debate it all day. Easily. And that could put them in the World Series. So anyway, it's getting frustrating. But Ken, safe travels. We will hear from you next week at the winter meetings. Enjoy it. And maybe we'll all be working a little bit this weekend if Soto news comes out. But thank you, Ken. Good to see you. There is a chance.
Thanks, guys.
We'll talk soon. Thank you. Ken Rosenthal, Fair Territory host as well. Check out that show. Mondays and Thursdays is a live edition on the FT YouTube channel. Winter meetings are next week, people. We're going to talk about the latest Juan Soto rumors next on FT.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.